She lent him €2.80 for the bus. She didn't know he was an art world millionaire. Lana Miles hunched her shoulders against the biting January wind as she waited at the tram station, clutching her sketchbook like a shield. Her shift at the ceramic studio had run late again, and the last tram was now her only ride home to the shared apartment she could barely afford. Her paint-stained jeans and oversized wool coat did little to keep out the cold. The platform was mostly empty, save for a few exhausted souls and the occasional gust of snow. When the tram finally pulled up, Lana exhaled in relief, fishing out her pass. She boarded, greeted the driver with a tired nod, and slid into a back seat, pressing her forehead against the icy window. Just as the tram doors began to close, a voice rang out. "Wait! Please! Hold on!" The driver hesitated, grumbling as he reopened the doors. A young man stumbled inside, breathless and flushed from the cold. He looked no older than Lana, early 20s maybe, but wore a charcoal peacoat and leather gloves that didn't match his nervous energy. "That'll be €2.80, the driver barked. The man patted his coat pockets, then checked the inner lining, his expression crumpling with embarrassment. I think I left my wallet in my sketch bag. I swear I just... No cash, no ride," the driver snapped, already pointing toward the door. From the back of the tram, Lana watched the exchange. The man's face, lit by the harsh fluorescent lights, radiated the same kind of silent panic she'd worn more than once herself. Without a second thought, she rose from her seat, dug into her coat pocket, and walked up to the front. "I've got it," she said simply, handing the driver €3 coins. The young man turned to her, stunned. "You don't have to." "I know," Lana interrupted with a faint smile. "Let's just call it community service." He gave her a look that landed somewhere between gratitude and disbelief. "Thank you. I'll find a way to repay you." "Don't worry about it," Lana replied, already returning to her seat. A few rows ahead, he settled into the window seat and glanced back at her more than once, as though trying to place her, or perhaps just understand why she'd helped. What Lana didn't know, what she had no way of knowing, was that she had just covered the fare for Noah Ellison, heir to one of Europe's most prestigious art collections. The same Noah whose family name adorned museum wings in 5 countries. But on that tram, in that moment, he wasn't the art world's golden boy. He was just a lost soul trying to disappear. And in Lana, he saw something he hadn't found in years. Someone who saw him without seeing his last name. The next morning, Lana stood behind the counter of Café Bellamy, the bohemian-style coffee shop where she worked part-time. The place smelled of espresso, cinnamon, and worn paperback pages, a comforting blend she had grown to love. Her hands moved automatically, steaming milk, pulling shots, sketching latte art with practiced precision. "Large oat cappuccino with a dash of cinnamon," she called out, sliding the drink down the bar. "Thanks," said a familiar voice. Lana looked up, startled. There he was. The man from the tram. His tousled hair was a little more tame today, his peacoat swapped for a navy sweater over a collared shirt. But the eyes, earnest, amber-flecked, observant, were unmistakable. "You found me," Lana said, surprised. "I was craving good coffee," he replied, a smile playing at the corners of his lips. "And maybe trying to find someone I owe €2.80 to." She smirked. "Still not necessary, but nice detective work." "I'm Noah," he offered, holding out his hand across the counter. "Lana," she replied, shaking it. Before they could say more, a sharp voice cut in. "Lana, the register's blinking again," called her coworker Theo. "Duty calls," she said apologetically, and turned away. But when the line died down 20 minutes later, Lana noticed that Noah was still there, seated at the corner table near the window, a sketchbook open in front of him. Not a phone. That, in itself, was rare enough to catch her attention. On her break, she wandered over, wiping her hands on her apron. "So you sketch?" she asked, peering at the page. "Sometimes," he replied, showing her a quick charcoal sketch of the cafe's storefront. It was rough but evocative, the kind of drawing done by someone who wasn't trying to impress, just trying to observe. "Not bad," she admitted. "You've got a good eye." He chuckled. High praise, coming from a barista/art student? You remembered that? I remember most things people say when they're being kind for no reason. There was a beat of silence. Lana wasn't sure what to make of that, or him. He was well-spoken, sure, but there was a softness behind his confidence. Something practiced, maybe even rehearsed, like he was used to saying what people wanted to hear. Still, she found herself intrigued. "You want a refill?" she asked. "Only if I can pay for it this time." As she walked back behind the counter, she caught herself smiling. She didn't know who Noah really was or why he had shown up again, but one thing was certain. He wasn't just another passenger anymore. The next 2 weeks unfolded like brushstrokes on a half-finished canvas, spontaneous, messy, and unexpectedly beautiful. Noah returned to Café Bellamy almost every other day, always during Lana's shifts. He'd order something simple, an Americano, sometimes black tea, then settle into his usual table near the window with his sketchbook and worn leather journal. They exchanged small talk at first, how Lana balanced school and work, what kind of art she liked, what he was reading, but with each visit, their conversations deepened. One afternoon, as a winter drizzle tapped softly against the windows, Lana sat across from him during her break, stirring honey into her coffee. "So what's your story really?" she asked, eyeing him over her cup. "You've got this whole mystery novelist energy going on." Noah laughed, but it didn't reach his eyes. "That bad, huh?" "Not bad," she said, "just, I don't know. You show up out of nowhere, never talk about where you're from or what you do. Your sketches are way too good for someone who doodles sometimes, and you always look like you're thinking about something else." He paused for a moment, staring out the window. "I'm just between things right now, figuring stuff out." "That's vague even for a poetry major." "I'm not a poetry major." "Exactly." Noah smiled again, more gently this time. "Can I ask you something, Lana?" "Sure." "Why art? Why not law or medicine or something? Safe?" Lana leaned back in her chair. "Because art saved me," she said, not entirely expecting the words until they came out. "When my dad died and everything fell apart, I didn't have anything else. No money, no stability, just this old box of his charcoal pencils. I started drawing to cope and never stopped." Noah nodded slowly. "So it's survival." "It's truth," she corrected softly. "It's the only thing that feels honest." Their eyes met and something passed between them, a fragile understanding. "You ever feel like you're living a version of yourself that isn't quite real?" Noah asked. Lana tilted her head. "You mean like wearing a costume that doesn't fit?" "Exactly." She considered him for a long moment, something in his voice registering as more than abstract. "Yeah," she said finally, but eventually the seams start to tear. Before he could reply, her coworker Theo appeared, waving at her from behind the counter. "5-minute break's been 10, Lana." She sighed and stood up, but not before glancing once more at Noah. "I don't know what version of yourself you're trying to hide," she said quietly, "but if you want someone to see the real thing, you might have to show it." She left him with that thought and returned to her post. Noah stared at the spot where she had been sitting, fingers resting on his closed sketchbook. He wasn't used to people asking real questions. Most never looked past the surface. But Lana did. And that terrified him more than he wanted to admit. Lana had never thought of herself as suspicious. Cautious maybe, but not paranoid. Yet the more time she spent with Noah, the more small things began to catch her attention, like the way he always paid in cash but never seemed short on it, or how his basic wristwatch bore a tiny emblem she recognized from a luxury design article she'd read for an art theory class, a watch worth more than a semester's tuition. Or the way he spoke about art, not like someone who learned it in college, but like someone who grew up surrounded by it. One evening, while locking up Café Bellamy, she found him waiting outside, hands stuffed in his coat pockets, eyes a little tired. "You okay?" she asked, tugging on her knit hat. "Yeah, just long day," he said. "Want to walk a bit?" They strolled in silence through the cobblestone side streets near the old canal, passing shuttered bookstores and glowing lamplights that shimmered on the wet pavement. "Noah," Lana said suddenly, stopping near a wrought iron bench. "Can I ask you something? And I want a real answer." He looked at her, his posture tightening. "Okay. Who are you really? What do you mean? You wear second-hand sweaters but carry a watch worth 2,000 euros. You say you sketch for fun, but you talk about chiaroscuro and Dutch masters like you've spent a lifetime around curators. You know details that most professors wouldn't drop casually. And you always dodge questions about your past." Noah's jaw tensed. He sat on the bench, running a hand through his hair. "You're not wrong," he said at last. Lana sat beside him, silent. "My name is Noah Ellison," he said. "My family owns Ellison and Heist, the gallery network. My grandfather started it with one watercolor and an estate in Belgium. Now it spans 3 continents." Lana blinked. That name was everywhere in the art world. Prestigious exhibitions, record-breaking auctions, historic restorations. "I walked out of that life 2 months ago," he continued. "Just disappeared. Took a backpack, some cash, and left. I told myself I wanted to see how people lived without all that pressure, without the name. I wasn't trying to lie. I just wasn't ready to be that version of myself again." "You should have told me," Lana said quietly. "I know," Noah admitted. "I thought I'd lose the only person who's ever treated me like more than a last name." Lana looked away toward the canal's shimmering reflection. "You still might," she said. "I don't know yet." Noah's voice was soft. "What do you need to know?" "That you're not pretending now," she whispered. "That this isn't just some rich kid's experiment in playing poor." "It's not," he said. "I've never felt more real than I do with you." Silence lingered between them, thick with everything unsaid. Then Lana stood. "I need time." "I'll wait," Noah replied, standing beside her, "as long as it takes." She didn't answer, but she didn't walk away either. The truth had cracked the surface. For a few days, Lana kept her distance. She still served Noah at Café Bellamy, still smiled politely when he ordered his usual, but the easy rhythm between them had shifted. She didn't know if she was angry, hurt, or just afraid of feeling foolish. Maybe all 3. Noah kept coming back anyway. Quietly, patiently, never pushing. "Naomi." Then, it happened. One rainy Thursday afternoon, the cafe was packed with students escaping the downpour and sipping overpriced matcha. Lana was behind the counter, restocking mugs when the door chimed, and a woman entered with an umbrella and an unmistakable sense of purpose. She looked around once, spotted Noah seated near the bookshelf, and strode toward him. "Noah Ellison?" she asked, just loud enough to draw a few curious stares. Noah looked up, alarm flickering in his expression. "Yes?" The woman pulled out a business card and a small voice recorder. "Juliana Klein, I'm with the Collectors Quarterly. We've been trying to get a statement from the Ellison family for weeks. Your father declined. But now that I've found you—" "I'm not giving any statements," Noah said sharply, his voice low. Lana froze behind the counter. Juliana didn't flinch. "You disappeared 2 months before the annual Ellison exhibit. Now you're living off-grid and frequenting small cafes. Is this some kind of art world protest?" He stood. "Leave." But it was too late. The name had been spoken. Loudly. The cafe went quiet. Eyes turned. Lana's coworker Theo glanced over. "Wait, Ellison? Like, the Ellison?" The journalist followed Noah's gaze to Lana behind the counter. "And this is the woman you've been seen with?" "Leave her out of this," Noah said, stepping in front of her. "Oh, this is going to make quite the headline," Juliana murmured, typing on her phone. "Heir to art empire living as barista's boyfriend?" Lana felt heat rising to her face. Her hands trembled as she reached for a towel she didn't need. Noah turned to her, regret already in his eyes. "Lana, you said you left that world," she said, voice cracking. "I did." "Then why is it still following you, still following me? I never wanted this." "But you brought it anyway." The journalist was still snapping photos. Customers were whispering. Theo was staring at them like they were characters in a movie. Lana couldn't breathe. "I need air," she muttered, untied her apron, and walked straight out into the rain. The rain hit Lana's skin in sharp little slaps as she wandered the side streets near the cafe, her thoughts spiraling with every step. She had trusted Noah, or at least the version of him he'd shown her. The one who sketched quietly, listened intently, and paid in coins like he knew what it meant to count cents. Now all she could see was the man whose name had appeared in the New York Times art section. The heir. The fraud. Montnum. She didn't return to the cafe that evening. Instead, she went home, climbed into bed fully clothed, and stared at the ceiling for hours. Noah's texts went unanswered. His calls went straight to voicemail. By the next morning, he was gone. Noah stood in front of a run-down inn nestled in the hills outside a forgotten town. The Willows Lodge, the chipped sign, read, "No marble floors, no gallery walls, just pine wood, drafty windows, and a quiet no one could interrupt." He had taken a train west that same night, left his phone in a taxi, and paid for a month in cash. The old man who ran the place asked no questions, just handed him a key and said, "Sink in room 3 drips, welcome to nowhere." Noah's room smelled of cedar and mothballs. The mattress dipped in the middle, and the water took 5 minutes to run warm. He didn't care. Winnable, for the first time in his life, no one recognized his face. He spent the first week cleaning gutters, chopping wood, learning how to unclog a toilet. His hands blistered. His back ached. But something about the simplicity of it all, about the honesty, kept him going. He didn't sketch. Not at first. He just tried to live. And every night, just before sleep, he pulled a worn photograph from his wallet, Lana laughing in the park, autumn leaves caught in her hair, and wondered if disappearing had been bravery or cowardice. Back in the city, Lana sat at the kitchen table with a half-finished cup of tea, flipping through news headlines. Ellison heir goes missing after cafe reveal. Noah Ellison resigns from Family Foundation. Insiders say he gave up everything. She didn't know what to feel. He had lied. But he had also walked away from millions. For her? For himself? For the first time, she wasn't sure if she'd been betrayed or seen. 3 weeks had passed since the cafe incident. Lana hadn't heard a word from Noah. She told herself it was for the best, that their worlds had always been too different, that the quiet evenings of sketching and coffee had been a fantasy built on borrowed time, but no amount of distraction, not her classes, not her part-time shifts, not even her painting, could quiet the ache that settled behind her ribs. Then one morning, tucked between bills and a campus newsletter in her mailbox, she found it. Hopal. A letter. Hopal, Hobal, Hobal. Handwritten. No return address. Just her name. Just side was a single page. Neat handwriting in black ink. No flourishes, no signature beyond his name. Lana, I never meant for you to be caught in the storm of my past. You once told me that art was the only thing that ever felt honest. You were right. And that's what you became for me. The most honest thing in a life I spent too long pretending to understand. I'm not asking for forgiveness, but I do need you to know this. You didn't just help a stranger on a tram. You helped someone lost in himself find a reason to try again. Play. I'm at the Willows Lodge, west of Lindsboro. Room 3. If you ever want to yell at me in person, if not, thank you for seeing me. Noah. Lana read the letter twice, then a third time. By evening, it was still in her pocket, worn soft at the corners. Are you going? Her roommate asked gently, watching her stare out the window. I don't know, Lana whispered. I don't even know what I'd say. But the question pulsed louder with each passing hour. What if I don't go? What if she never knew whether his apology had weight? What if he was telling the truth? Not just about where he'd gone, but about why. That night, Lana pulled out a dusty duffel bag, packed one change of clothes, a few sketchbooks, and a ticket stub from the art show Noah had surprised her at. A reminder of something real. Dendis. Danad. By morning, she was on a bus, heading west. Dendis. She didn't know what she was walking into, but she knew what she needed to find out. The Willows Lodge was smaller than Lana expected. Nestled in the curve of a quiet mountain road, It looked like something from a forgotten postcard. Moss-covered shingles, wood-paneled walls, and a porch swing that creaked with the wind. She stepped off the bus with her duffel in one hand and Noah's letter in the other. The air smelled like pine and wood smoke. Her heart pounded with each step toward the lodge's front door. Inside, the lobby was simple: worn rugs, an old fireplace, and a counter that looked like it had been built by hand. Behind it stood a man in his 60s, reading a newspaper. "Can I help you?" he asked without looking up. "I'm looking for Noah Ellison," Lana said, her voice barely steady. The man slowly lowered the paper, eyeing her carefully. "Room 3, he said, nodding toward the hallway. Then, after a beat, "You're the girl." Lana didn't ask what he meant. She just walked. Her footsteps were soft on the creaky wooden floor. The door to room 3 stood slightly ajar. She hesitated for only a second before raising her hand and knocking gently. The door opened wider. Noah stood inside, barefoot, wearing an old flannel shirt and jeans that had seen better days. His hair was longer, his face tanned, and his eyes, tired, surprised, and completely unguarded, locked on hers. "Lana." He said her name like a breath he hadn't let go of in weeks. "He-san." She stepped inside, closing the door behind her. The room was small, just a bed, a desk, and a window looking out over the trees. A sketch of the landscape, charcoal on thick paper, was pinned to the wall. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Then she said softly, "I got your letter." He nodded. "I didn't know if you would come. Neither did I." Silence stretched between them again, filled only by the distant sound of wind chimes and pine branches swaying. "I didn't come here for some grand apology," she said finally, "and I didn't come to fix you. I wouldn't ask you to. I came because I needed to see if you were real." Noah took a breath. "And? I think you are. Flawed, complicated, still kind of infuriating, but real." Relief flickered across his face like sunlight through clouds. "I'm sorry, Lana, for all of it. For hiding, for lying, for not trusting you with the truth. You were scared. I was ashamed. And I was angry," she admitted. "Still am, a little. You have every right to be." She studied him for a long moment, then stepped closer. "I'm not here to pick up where we left off," she said. "I'm here to decide if there's somewhere else we can start. From truth. From who we are, not who we pretended to be." Noah's voice was quiet. "I'd like that." She glanced around the room. "So this is your new life?" "Part of it," he said. "The beginning, maybe." She smiled faintly. "Well, beginnings, I understand." They sat by the window for hours after that, talking about everything and nothing. No performance, no pretending, just Lana and Noah, two people who met on a tram and found each other again in the quiet. The next morning, the sun filtered through pine needles, casting dappled light across the worn wooden floors of room 3. Lana sat cross-legged on Noah's small porch, sipping coffee from a mismatched mug. She had barely slept, not from discomfort, but from the quiet unraveling happening inside her. Noah joined her with 2 slices of toast balanced on a chipped plate. He didn't say anything as he handed one to her, just sat down beside her with a sigh that seemed to carry months of weight. They ate in silence for a while, watching a squirrel dart along the railing. Then Lana asked softly, "Do you think people like us can really start over?" Noah was quiet for a long moment. "I think we can start honest." Lana nodded, eyes focused on the forest ahead. "When you left, I kept trying to rewrite things in my head. Maybe if I hadn't pushed. Maybe if you'd just told me sooner. But the truth is, we both messed up." "I lied," Noah said plainly. "You didn't." "No, but I judged you. I shut you out so fast. I wanted truth, but when it came crashing in, I ran from it." She glanced at him. We were both scared. He gave a crooked smile. "I still am." "Me too." Lana placed her coffee down and picked up her sketchbook, flipping to a page she hadn't shown anyone yet. It was a portrait, unfinished, of Noah on the tram. Wind-blown hair, startled eyes, the exact moment he'd stepped into her world. I started this before I even knew your name, she said. Noah looked at it for a long time. You saw me, he said. I did, even when I didn't know what I was seeing. She hesitated, then continued. Forgiveness isn't easy for me. I don't do clean slates. I carry things. All of them, even when I try not to. I'm not asking you to forget, Noah said, just to keep walking. Even if it's slow, even if it's messy. Lana smiled faintly. You sound like someone who's patched a lot of walls with cheap tools. I have. And fixed a lot of leaking sinks, he grinned. Badly. They laughed, and it was the first time in a long while it felt unburdened. Later that day, they took a walk through the woods behind the lodge. No plans, no promises. Just leaves crunching beneath their shoes, and a shared silence that no longer felt heavy. The lodge. They were not the same people who had met on that tram. They never would be. The lodge. But they were something else now. Honest, cautious, and, most importantly, willing. Not every masterpiece had perfect lines. Some were built on layers, on corrections, on bold strokes and quiet repairs. Forgiveness wasn't a clean canvas. It was one worth painting anyway. 2 years later, Lana stood beneath a skylight in the Rosemont Gallery, her heels clicking softly against the marble floor. The white walls around her were lined with a collection titled Unfinished Truths, her first solo exhibition. Each piece told a story. Charcoal portraits, fragmented cityscapes, layered watercolor studies. They were raw, intimate, imperfect, just like her. She adjusted a crooked frame for the third time, then stepped back, trying to calm the tremble in her hands. This night marked the end of her thesis, but it was more than that. It was the beginning of something real. Her voice, in a room that once would have felt too grand to belong to her. A familiar voice called softly from behind. Still fussing with that one? Lana turned. Noah stood near the entrance, hands in his coat pockets, dressed simply. Always simply now, but with a warmth in his eyes that hadn't changed. He held a small box wrapped in brown paper. You're early, Lana said, surprised, but secretly grateful. Wouldn't miss it, he said, stepping closer and pressing the box into her hands. Open it. Inside was a wooden frame. Simple, handmade, and within it, her sketch of him, the one from the tram, now finished, with charcoal shadows softening around his face and new detail in the lines of his coat. He had quietly taken the original and returned it, complete. It's yours now, Noah said. You saw me before I saw myself. I thought it should come full circle. Lana blinked fast, swallowing the lump in her throat. Thank you. They wandered the gallery together, watching guests drift from piece to piece. Lana introduced him to professors, donors, and a few critics who had started whispering phrases like, emerging voice in postmodern realism. Noah never let go of her hand. At one point, her mentor pulled her aside. That the same guy from your early sketches? Lana nodded. Different now, but yes. That's him. Later that night, they sat on the steps outside the gallery, heels and jackets discarded, paper cups of leftover sparkling cider between them. You nervous? Noah asked. Terrified, Lana admitted. What if this is as far as I go? It's not, he said confidently. But even if it is, it's far. And it's yours. She smiled, leaning her head on his shoulder. Their life hadn't been perfect. There were still moments of doubt. Still hard conversations. Still reminders of the world Noah had left behind, and the one Lana had fought to claim. But they had built something in between. Not a compromise, but a shared space that held both of them fully, and they kept building it. One cup of coffee, one sketch, one day at a time. Sometimes love didn't begin with fireworks or fate. Sometimes it began with €2 and 80 cents and a stranger on a tram, and that was enough. If this story moved you, reminded you that healing is real, or renewed your belief in second chances, we invite you to subscribe to Healing Stories. Here, we share real-life journeys of strength, love, and hope. Stories that speak straight to the soul. Thank you for being here. And always remember, no matter how far you fall, there's always a way back to the light. Where are you watching from? Drop a comment below and let us know.